Okay. And crackle, crackle. Okay, we're live on Twitch. Here we are. And if I paste this chat, it's in the overlay. It's on Twitch. And it's on YouTube. Alright. Alright, let's see. Let's see how long the stream is gonna last today. Whew, okay, it's been a while. I was really quite sick the last 2 weeks, and the weekend before that I was traveling, which is where I got sick. So, yay. Sorry about missing a couple of streams. But today I'm gonna work on something that is kind of overdue. And it's also, is there a gap at the bottom of my windows? Can I get rid of that gap? Why is there a gap? Windows 11, no, Windows 11 gap between Windows and taskbar. God damn it, there's always something. Can I get rid of that gap? It has nothing to do with tablet mode. Is this hello? Sounds weird in my ears. Let me know if the audio is not right. Anybody know where this gap comes from? I don't know if you can see it on stream. No, you cannot, because my taskbar isn't actually shown. But basically there's a gap of about, I don't know, 5-10 pixels. Restart Explorer. I don't want to do that while I'm streaming. It is super annoying, and I don't know why Windows does this sort of thing. Okay, across the left losing patience, decided to unlock my app window and appears now without a gap above the taskbar. Let's see, if I unlock the taskbar, can I now? Nope, still gappy. If I make the taskbar taller. It doesn't resize to the size of the taskbar at all. In fact, it goes underneath the taskbar. So I'm suspecting that fancy zones, even though on this screen it's not supposed to have a layout, maybe that'll fix it? Nope. Where's this here? Can I disable fancy zones completely for a particular screen? I don't know what this looks like on the live stream, I'm afraid. Can I? No layout. Okay. Can I launch layout editor? Because on the no layout one, here I can change spaces and all this. What if I make a new layout? None. Create. And then can I shift, control, tab, delete, remove the, okay, and boom, save. So I do this, and then say no space. Let's make this 0. Slider control for something like this is so obnoxious. Save. I do this now. Oh, but now, nope, and that still works. It still has the space there, so it's like, it's almost like it doesn't see the entire space as available for resizing the window. God damn it. All right, I'm not gonna look into this now. I always get sidetracked, but that problem didn't. I wasn't aware of it, and that's the sort of thing I noticed pretty quickly. Anywho, let's get into it. So today I'm looking into some system of collecting replay data for research by the 9x9 project, and just in general for like as a sort of pathfinder for general data storage and communication stuff. I've had a sort of a rough kind of prototyping version of this running last year for a little bit, where basically I was saving replays as if they were puzzles into the puzzle API. This is before we had the database. But now I want to actually set it up as in a separate place with its own API and all that sort of thing. And I'm gonna go make a very short plan of a couple of steps. So, because I want to be able to trigger this from the server side, I don't want this to be code that runs in the browser. So we basically need, okay, we need a couple of things first. We need, because basically the server needs to modify the request to the client, or the response to the client. When the client loads a puzzle for the first time, something needs to go in there to say, okay, we want to collect for this puzzle, right? So server needs to be able to modify the request somehow. I don't want every browser to always have a separate request to the server to ask if it needs to collect, right? And I don't want to just to send every replay either, because that's potentially a lot of data that I just throw away and a lot of bandwidth and all this stuff. But we also need to be a bit wary that, you know, I don't want people to just bombard my server and DOS it and all this sort of thing. So it needs to be somewhat secure, right? But we need to get data sent to us from the client. So we need to validate the data a bit. So I want to do something with hashes and such. Not exactly cryptographically or anything like that, but, you know. So, step one, notify browser to collect replay. So we basically want to say off replay collection session. We basically want to say, hey browser, this session is a replay collection session, and then the browser can do whatever it needs to do, right? Generally, I only want to collect replays of completed puzzles, because otherwise, you know, I don't want to send partial replays. I need to collect maybe 1,000 replays for a puzzle, and maybe, you know, 10,000 for a day or 20,000 in a day. So I don't want to, you know, collect each one 10 or 100 times, right? So we need to notify browser of replay collection. We need to trigger replay upload on puzzle completed. So in the browser, so server to browser, trigger replay upload on puzzle completed. Then on the server, receive replay data for, and then we basically just need to store replay data. Now, ideally, it should be enough to just dump the data as a file on disk. I don't think I want to have to update a database or JSON file or anything like that. I don't think it's necessary. And then down the line, I'll just pull the data from the server and then process it locally, right? But I would like to make sure that not anybody can just dump any kind of data on the server, right? So to do that, what I want to do is internally, I have an identifier for puzzles via a hash of the puzzle data. So that should help to make sure the replay data gets matched to a specific puzzle, not to just the URL if the puzzle data ever changes and things like that, right? And I don't want to have to upload the puzzle with each replay either, right? Now, we have various kind of identifiers, you know, for example, different puzzles can be on the same URL, right? The same puzzle can be on different URLs, etc., right? I think I want to include the short ID, the URL, because that might identify a specific test run. So for example, replay data for the same puzzle on different URLs might actually be part of different research studies, and, you know, they might have, users might have arrived from different sources, they might have gotten different instructions, etc. So we want to be able to collect replay data in, we probably want to collect it by short ID, by sort of puzzle URL, or by a combination. So that's the sort of thing I want to figure out now, right? So let's look at puzzle info, right? So this hash should uniquely identify this puzzle data. So if this puzzle gets updated, that hash should get updated. Not the title, not the counter ID. You know, multiple puzzles can have the same counter ID, yada, 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 right? We have the IDs that are stored in the puzzle. Again, multiple puzzles can have the same of these. These are not unique. And we have short IDs. Again, not unique, right? So puzzle hash is the closest thing we have to a unique per puzzle identifier, although it is not guaranteed either, because the same puzzle can be encoded different ways, you know? For example, if the cages are stored in a different order in the data, the hash will be different, right? So it's not a hash of a normalized format or anything like that. Yeah, I'm wondering if maybe the hash wouldn't be necessary. Maybe the date and the short ID should be enough, and then for puzzles where research gets done, you know, if the puzzle needs to be updated, for example, we'll just have to filter by date. You know, we'll have to deal with that down the line. But we can potentially just include both, right? What I would like to do, though, is I'd like to be able to add something to the puzzle data that lets the server identify if the puzzle was, you know, sort of, if it's the right puzzle. Basically, just to make it a little harder for anybody to just sort of spam data at the server, right? So, is it cryptographically encrypted like that? I don't know. But basically, some sort of hash value, something that the server sends to the client, and if the data doesn't contain that, it just discards the data, right? And I'm trying to think, like, ideally it's something that requires both the data of the puzzle and the data of the replay. And I guess what I'm really thinking about is public-private key encryption. But I don't actually want to implement that, right? I just don't want somebody to be able to take a 1 megabyte lump of garbage data and just send it 10,000 times to my server, pretending it's 10,000 separate replays, right? I want to prevent that. And ideally, I don't want to record PII. Like, I don't necessarily want to record replays per IP or anything like that. I'm thinking about it, right? It's not easy without identifying the user, you know. I want to both accept arbitrary data from arbitrary clients, but I want to be able to sanity check them and reject them, right? So I want to basically validate the data without having to parse the replays either, because the parsing replays can actually be quite expensive. So I guess, I guess one of the easiest things would be to, in step 1, include, in this step, include some sort of key and only accept data that is, what's the word? That's encrypted with the key, I guess. I guess we could have the data be encrypted. Like a way of validating the data. The thing is, I don't know yet what the data will be at this phase, right? So we do need to be able to accept a range of data. We just need to be able to sort of have the client sign the data in a way that avoids the client being able to sign multiple ones, right? And the problem is, I don't want to have a database that tracks these keys. So in other words, I want this to be stateless on the server, which makes it very difficult, because of course the server... So the key would have to be easily identifiable by the server from the existing stored data. So in other words, the key basically needs to be the file name, or needs to be part of the file name. So if it gets 2 sets of data with the same key, it knows there's a problem. Okay, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm wondering if what I could do is if I could allocate a zero-size file of a specific name at this point, send that name to the client, and if the client returns data with that name at stage 4, I accept it. If the file doesn't exist, I reject the data. So that way, each of these 1, 2, 3, 4s would be a specific session, and the existence of that session would be tracked in the zero-size files. Now, obviously, that means I give users the power to create an arbitrary number of zero-size files, but I could limit those, right? I could say, okay, no more than 50,000 files per, you know, two-digit hash beginning or whatever, right? So imagine we're creating folders. We take the first couple of digits as subfolders, so we don't have too many files in one location. That's one way. Another way would be to literally just put it in a database, right? And track them as basically as real sessions. The other way would be to just accept the arbitrary data and do more work on the server with that data. So basically just say, okay, we'll actually parse it. We only accept data where the replay is X moves, where blah, 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 right? And at this point, this is scientific research, so we're not really worried about people gaming a system or anything like that. The other concern there is just them wasting CPU time. But they kind of can already do that. They can literally just hit the server a lot, and each server request takes some CPU time, right? And that's something I can then handle with... Then I'm better off just doing throttling on the server side, right? Say, okay, we've got that much access from a particular user, so Node.js user throttling. I'm sure there's throttling systems I can use that do some basic tracking on whatever IPs or some sort of user identifier, right? I also don't want to overcomplicate the first prototype, right? Like I want to get to a point where I can just run it, collect 1,000 replays, and then review, right? So I don't actually... I think the only limits I want to do is I don't want to store too much data in too many files, right? So as long as I say, okay, if there's 5,000 files stored, don't store any more files, right? One thing that's missing here is how to configure which data gets collected. Hey, Marushia, how are you? So let's write down the components we want, right? We want to be able to configure collection targets on the server. So that's one of the components. We need some sort of configuration that gets parsed and turned into this notification, right? We need an API endpoint to receive data, right? We need an API endpoint. We need an injector. We need a HTML injector to add browser notification. So we need to notify, this is step 1 here. We need to have a way of injecting something according to the configuration into the browser. CTC bingo app. Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. Sort of like, has Mark said these things, or has Simon done these things, right? I'm okay. I'm feeling much better. I was quite sick, and unfortunately, the last couple of days I haven't slept much because of coughing. But I'm feeling much better. So hopefully, maybe tonight I'll have maybe a bit more coughing issues, but it should be much milder, and then I think I'll be okay. The other thing, okay, we need to do validate data and discard, and validate and discard received data. So we need to be able to discard data according to certain mechanisms, number of files, storage, so to reduce the possibility of messing the server up. Even not necessarily something somebody's trying to do, but potentially me just having a bug and it's sending data too often or whatever. I don't want my server to go down. Excuse me. So I also need to think about how I want to encode the data, because currently it is zipped on the client, but it's base64 encoded, which still makes it quite large. So I was looking at zip.js, but it's quite large. It's like 180 kilobytes. So that's a lot to download into the browser. I don't know if there's a sort of a minified version, like a minimal version of this that's smaller, that doesn't implement the entire zip standard, Compression with web workers. Compression zip.min.js. Zip.min. So zip.min.js. I guess that's the smallest one. 97 kilobytes. It's still quite large. So we probably don't want to do that. Yeah, double digits. I've had prototypes and it was in the works. but I haven't touched it in a long time. It's definitely something that I'll build eventually. And double digits would also mean double letter. But I'll probably don't go into longer formats than that, because then the user interface really needs to change. All right. So, how do we want to encode? Let me just reopen. Actually, let me just do this. I probably played some of these recently. Yeah. So yesterday's New York Times Easy. So framework app dot puzzle dot get progress. If I do this, okay. So that's the encrypted progress data. And that's 1774. Okay. And if I open the hard one, it's 5K. Okay. And if I check the medium one, just so I get an idea of like basic range. But that's part of why I want to run. Okay, so that's the biggest one, 5.6K. And that's why I want to run a test, so I get an idea of how big the ranges are. Some people might take much longer on a puzzle and might really blow out the size of the replay data and things like that. But is he likely to select a puzzle that he's not good at? I don't know. I don't know how their selection process works. So, let us have a look at the uncompressed data. And I just need to review this from time to time because I keep forgetting how it works. So, internally, we go to get progress, right? So this does get replay, no states. So let me just save these here. So if I do framework.app that get replay no states true, so that's already encoded. Okay. So it's replay encode. Framework.app.puzzle. Okay. If I say, okay, load replay should be doing the decoding. Replay.decode. So if we do this, we decode the encode. And I don't think that's how it'll work. Or is it? Okay, that's symmetric. Okay. So if I do this, how big is that in comparison? Oops. Okay, so that's 20K. So it's 4:1. Okay. All right. That's definitely worth it. Although, because the encoded format here, like, it would be fairly easy to make a binary format that's smaller. And that's something that I need to consider. Do I want to build a binary format for this, right? Or I could even do, you know, just, for example, have 1 byte for one of these. It wouldn't be too complicated, right? 1 byte per action. Turn these into just bytes for cell references or something like that, right? Set of cell references. What is a good compact encoding of that? Probably just indexes, right? I mean, right now they're at least 4 digits, so if I make a 2 byte, a 16-bit, but that only takes me up to 16 by 16, right? No, much more, right? 65,000, right? 2 to the power of 16. Square root of that. 256 by 256, yeah. So that would work for everything except the big GAT-type puzzles. Size, right? Because most of my server costs at the moment is bandwidth. So if I add all of this, if I want to collect you know, if I collect 10,000 5K replays, right? So that's 50 megabytes of extra bandwidth. If I want to do that for 2 puzzles every day, I mean, likely it won't be a lot, so maybe I shouldn't be worrying about that at this stage. So maybe for now I should just save the raw replays. Okay, let's have a look at the server, because I currently it's not really dynamic, but I've been looking into doing it like the initial page generation, make it more dynamic. So let's have a look what currently happens when we're hitting a particular puzzle. And I don't actually want the API hit here. I want to have the raw page hit. And there's a bit of a problem with that. There's a little bit of a problem with that, because one page hit can actually... it can hit different puzzles, right? Like there's endless mode, which can dynamically load in different puzzles and so on. So I'll probably should do it by this. So let's have a quick look at that. Match route REURL. That's the redirect. And then that's the final catch-all, isn't it? So handle serve puzzle. Next URL path name. Error redirect from invalid handle serve puzzle. Okay, so let's try something here. So this would be one of our test puzzles. And we want to see... We want to see what happens on the server here. Yep. Make it work, make it right, make it fast. Yeah, it's basically what the undo redo system uses. So I'm just gonna send that data up. Alright, so handle serve puzzles here. So in this place, we basically need some sort of configuration. We'll have to check against the configuration, and then we need to modify the send file. And I think currently we're serving the file statically, which is a problem, right? So either I modify the file on the fly, which is the thing that I've been always thinking about, like, hey, because in the future it means I could, for example, directly include the thumbnail for the puzzle or the title of the puzzle in the page and things like that, right? The other option would be to modify something in the response headers and then read those in some JavaScript on the client. So right now, it does this. Headers. But it does modify the headers. So if I go here and look at this here, and I look at response headers, puzzle canonical. Oh, I see. Yeah, so I could modify one of these headers, and then I'm relying on JavaScript again on the client. Serve static. Currently, I'm just reading the file from disk. In this case, though, I would have to read the file, modify the file. It's not that big of a deal, really. And in fact, you know, serve static does read the file here. And in fact, I can pass a modifier already in here, apparently. Right. 1 second. So, if I go into serve static here, we have the file path, we have the headers, and we have a modifier. Oh, wait. I'm an idiot. There it is. I'm seeing it. Because I thought I had done something in the past, and that's what I've implemented with this modifier. Okay. So, It should equal data, update HTML title. So in this case, it should actually, if I go at the payload, no, response, it has, okay, so we're already doing it. So we're, in this case, we're updating titles in the raw HTML. Okay, cool, 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 cool. All right. So, can we chain modifiers? Function chaining, right? So, first of all, how do we want to modify it? Do we want to add a script tag? Do we want to actually add the code that needs to be executed? Do we want to inject a separate script file, right? Probably that might be the easiest. We'll just say, hey, load one more script file, right? Modifier. Does modifier accept an array of modifiers? No. Type of modifier equals function. I mean, we could say if array dot is array modifier, then if type of modifier is a function. All right, that's the original code. So let's do this. If type of modifier equals function, modifier equals an array containing modifier. And then we'll say if array is an array modifier for modifier fn of modifier. So for each element in this modifier array, we'll basically just do this. Modifier fn resource request header. So that should just give us a list of modifiers, right? So instead of doing this, we can do something like let modifier equals array. And then each of these is a function like this. Equals, oops. Modifier 1. Modifier 1. And then we just need to return resource, right? And we'll do it twice. And we don't actually modify the resource. So if we do this, save it, it probably, yeah, modifier 1, modifier 2, right? 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay. So we can now turn modifier into an array. Well, I didn't implement delegates, but I guess this is kind of like that. So now we have this one, which sets up our titles and all that. And then our second modifier will be modify Sudoku HTML, no, modify Sudoku get replay. Now, I don't know exactly what information we'll send through, because we still need to validate, right, if we want to actually do something. So we'll probably want to actually do this. And then just send it through twice. Right? And then we can just kind of do this. Oops. Like that. right? And for now, that should just give us the whatever, right? And then in here, we can actually do our checks and lookups and all this stuff. I don't think you want your WebGL, your render pipeline be asynchronous. Ouchies. So, and then what we really want to do is we want to basically add one of these at the end. Because we don't really care about it loading early, because we only need to be ready by the time the puzzle finishes. And if the puzzle has already been finished, we actually don't care either. And then I'll probably... Part of me wants to do client-side tracking of if a replay has already been sent, but in this case, I probably don't want to pollute the client-side local storage more. But I also don't necessarily want to... Yeah, I think one of the things I'm going to do for this system is I'm actually going to create user IDs. So the code is actually going to generate a random user ID and then submit under that user ID. And, you know, it's not personally identifiable. The user ID is only used for this particular research tracking. It's not a cookie, so it's not like something that can be spread to other systems and all this sort of thing. So that should work. So here we'll probably just want to inject that, right? So let us look how this does it. Update HTML title. Create doc title. HTML.replace. HTML. Decode data. The one thing I don't actually like here is that we're encoding and decoding multiple times. So actually, I might have to put that in here. So then our multi-modifier thing here isn't really relevant. Because we have to do all of this. Yeah, because obviously the data might be compressed, and in this case with Brotli. I don't want to decompress it and recompress it multiple times for thousands of requests, right? In fact, it almost makes sense if I do this for everything anyways, is to disable the automatic encoding. So I don't have to decompress it and recompress it. So I only have to compress it, right? Because I think right now... right now it's running decode on everything. Yeah, so I'm basically currently broadly decompressing and recompressing every single request. And all of that because... wait a second. Encoding. Get encoding. Get cache resource by... Yeah, because the resources are cached by... Yeah, I was trying to be smart, and I... You have to be a bit careful, because I don't want to change this, because obviously this surf static is used for every file, while the modifier only applies to the HTML. So, you know, this one request hits 84 files. 70, 60, 80 requests. Well, not all of them are to my system, but... I don't have to modify this, optimize this just yet. But down the line, I'll probably want to optimize it in the sense that I don't encode it before the modifiers. I encode it after the modifiers. And I might not actually... I mean, I still want to cache the resource, but it's almost not worth it. Like, it might not be worth caching it in a compressed state. Yeah, I might not want to use surf static for it. I probably want to have a separate function, surf modified, which just bypasses the cache. Or just caches the unencoded data. Can I force a different encoding? No, because that's automatic on the accept encoding here. Yeah, probably. Although, you know, I have to watch my server a bit, because it's not like a high-end system. But I mean, let's see. Yeah, it's not exactly 15%. Like, it's hitting more CPU than I'd like, but it's not like in the 90s or whatever. So probably I can ignore that. But down the line, probably what I'll do is I'll actually have the regular surf static, which is as optimized as possible, and then a separate one for modified files where it doesn't cache the encoded version, because it knows it needs to modify them, and then it passes a unencoded version to the modifiers, and then the modifiers don't have to decode and encode. In fact, I should have done that in the first place, because obviously this decode encode this was a pain in the ass to do, to actually separately run the Brotli encryption and decryption, compression and decompression on every modified file. Like that, the hard drive access is probably faster than that compression. Like, I don't think my hard drive is the bottleneck. It's more likely to be the CPU. All right, let's ignore that for now. So I think I'm actually gonna join these together. So instead of doing that, I'm just gonna do that. It still makes sense to do that change. And then here, I refresh that now, right? We'll output the encoding, which is BR. And if we output the HTML, yeah, we get all that. So we should be able to do something like HTML replace yada yada, right? So what if I do slice, excuse me, minus 200? That should be the last 200 characters, right? If I do that twice, and then in between, I'll do something like HTML equals place title tag. Basically, let's not do that for a sec. If I do this, and I want to find slash body, and then slash s, any amount of white space, including multiline, right? What does that match? It doesn't match multiline. So I'll have to do something like that. Like if I do this, does that not work? Why would slice 1 not work here? Because I don't have brackets. Okay, fair enough. But then I want to grab what comes after the line break. Is that not right? No, it is. It is. Okay. So slash HTML. So basically, you want to take these two. We'll actually want to do everything ahead of that as well, in terms of white spaciness. So we'll get all of those, and then we'll just inject it there. The modifiers, it'll just pass the data through and and the modifier spits it out. So the modifier can modify the HTML. So in the original use case was to actually change the title to the puzzle title of the served HTML rather than changing it via JavaScript later once the puzzle's loaded. But in the future, it might actually go as far as actually having the pre-rendered version of the puzzle, the SVG, straight there, so it loads much faster. So it doesn't need to load 100K before it can actually display the puzzle, but the puzzle is immediately there in the first response, you know? But that's future stuff. So if I say something like let HTML body let end body HTML equals this, right? And then I'll do that. And then we'll basically do this kind of thing. Replace that with something. We'll put that back in there when we're done with it. And then here we'll put something like that. Script, you know, kind of one of these guys. Script. Do I want to version that? I probably do. I have to grab the version as well. Okay. So we want to grab one of these from somewhere. Don't really care too much which one. Something like that. Something like that. Or do I just want to grab it from higher up? From sort of... Where's the version first? Nah. Yeah, it's mentioned here. I should really put it in the meta text somewhere. Yeah. Freeformer, I guess. I don't know. Server-side rendering, I suppose you can call it. It's just I need to move from static serving files to dynamically serving files for various reasons. If I do that. So, if we do that. That's the version number, okay, because that version number will change with each release, right? And I want after each release, I wanted to load new files to avoid cache issues and all this stuff. It's probably a smarter way of doing this, but it is what it is right now, and I'm not here to change anything like that at the moment. What did I call the feature when I did it last time? Replay, huh? No, that's something else. Replay save. Let's call it collect replay. And we'll actually... Oops. We'll do that. And then we'll save it here. And that's basically the client-side component. Let's make this a little bit descriptive. Okay. I'm sorry, I hate working such a narrow window with such a big font, but for the stream, I'll make it usually a bit bigger so everyone can see what's going on. Collect replay. So there it is. Ouch. You do development streaming as well? 12 hours. Whoa. Yeah, I spent the first 1,000 hours I streamed very quickly with like 8+ hours every day, like 2 to 3 sessions, 4 hours each, that kind of thing. But I don't have the stamina anymore. All right. So this now lets us inject to the client whatever we want. Obviously, we might have to modify this file as well. Or we could actually add parameters to it right here. I wonder... if we have access to hash in a JavaScript URL. Access URL hash in JS source. Because window.location hash is of the main window. JavaScript access URL of JS resource. Access URL of JS file. And then using ideas to just leave the markup alone and use current. I mean, I guess I can put data into this tag, and then I can look that up. Then I don't have to, because then I don't have to modify this file. Circuit Studios channel. Ah, cool. So I can either add it as a data thing here. I can actually add a second script element and just put it there. Yeah, so there's many ways I can chuck it in there. So I just want to see what it looks like in the end. It's like that. So we probably want to do this. And not that. We actually need that. Right? So if I do this. Okay, it doesn't have the indent, but that's fine. And the version should be whatever the first JS file is. So that should also update correctly. Alright. That should still work like that. I'll get rid of that. Boom. Huh? What did I change? I feel like I've removed something there. What did I remove? For the title tag, I just copied that in here. Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. That's not supposed to be in there. I copied that from above there as a reference. All right. So I think this is correct. Boom. And collect replay. Okay. So that's actually one of the tricky, like it's a small part, but it's a tricky part, is how to inject it. So we need to still configure it. I mean, we could fake the configuration because initially we're just going to hard code it for any shirt ID that starts with 9x9, right? So, I'm tempted to put it in a sub function, but I'd still have to pass everything through because we might need to access the headers because we might want to record some information about the user. Here we have the information about the puzzle as well. Okay, so const update HTML replay collect. And here we want short ID, puzzle, HTML, headers, HTML. Right. And we kind of just put that all in here. So we have short ID, puzzle, headers, HTML. And we'll want that to be asynchronous because we might have to hit the database, we might have to do something, look stuff up, yada yada. Boom. All right. And then here we can do stuff like checking what short ID we're in. We can do things like looking at the puzzle information directly. That's a little tricky though, because the puzzles can be different formats, so we might have to parse what kind of format is, yada yada. Does that get us what the puzzle database returned? Yes. So that's good, because that'll give us the hash and some other things, right? Or is Game Jam in January? In January, I don't even know what's happening next week, so I don't really plan that far ahead. And obviously, I'm busy making games for work, so I'd love to participate in game jams again, especially when it comes to learning technologies and getting out of my headspace a bit. There's something actually I wanted to do. I need to build a dashboard, like an admin backend, and I hate building UI. So I was tempting to literally just build a little, because I always thought of video games as basically menus. So I was thinking, like, why not do it like that? You know, why not have a little spaceship that I fly around, and if I need to deploy something, I need to fly in this corner and shoot that lever and, you know, make a little game out of it. And especially for the 9x9 project, maybe something like that could also be the navigation between puzzles eventually. Like, why not let the kids navigate a character around? And that's something I always wanted to do, is like have some sort of world that you move around in, some space, and then the puzzles are objects in that space that you approach, and then you can play the puzzle, you know. And originally I thought to do that in 3D, you know, so I can stretch my WebGL legs a bit, but maybe I'll just do pixel art, a pixel art prototype, so to speak. All right. I think the easiest thing is to just put it in a script after this. I'll have to figure out exactly what I want to put here. I'd like to identify the puzzle and the user somehow in a way that then I can round trip it back to the server and sort of validate the data. So it's slightly harder to bodify this thing, right? Let's not worry about that for now. So if we go into collect replay, so that's basically going to work like replay save, or is that the use? Ah, no, that's the user controlled feature. Ah, okay. Where did I inject the code then that does actually say, it might just be in here somewhere, that actually sends the replay data to the server for research that I used to use last year? I don't even remember where that would be. Would I have put that as a separate feature. Is it maybe as part of the debug feature? Mental. This should all be disabled at the moment. Yeah, I've been trying to teach like I've got one of these browser windows has like a bunch of like prototyping tools. No, this is not it. This is for payment systems. Where is it? One of these. Nope. Yeah, I want to like try out to get used to some of these prototyping systems because I need to build UI for something, for a puzzle pack shop basically. It's hard. UI is so hard because there's no. I'm an engineer. I like things that are either correct or incorrect, right or wrong. And UI is always wrong in some ways. There's no such thing as a correct UI. I find that very hard to deal with. Just like trade-offs after trade-offs after trade-offs. I hate trade-offs. Okay, I'm trying to remember which feature contains some code that I used to use to send replays to the server. And I'm trying to remember how I would even find that code. Because it was using the short URL endpoints. So maybe I'll have to search for this. Wrong folder. Gifting, short URL, solved counter. Could be in solved counter. Replay test. Yes, that's it. Yep, and I'm not an artist. I know my limitations. Okay, so I used to send the replays as puzzle data into a replay short ID. But you see, I was also parsing. Okay, so I actually have a config here. Replay test. Okay, so that's empty at the moment. So I was loading that. So that's the whole code, huh? Good. So replay test. Solved count. Yeah. So basically, when the solved count gets incremented, I was calling this. And the solved counter gets incremented when show counter in dialog. Handle dialog solved. With dialog, no errors. Okay. So we don't want to build this as a whole feature. I don't think so. So at this point, we might actually have to wait for the app to come into existence. And because it's timing sensitive, we want to be super careful how we're gonna do that. Where am I? No, that's not where I am. That's not where I am. That's not where I am. That's where I am. Okay. So, framework.app is undefined. Okay, so we need to do framework. I don't actually remember. I'll look it up. Is it wait for app? Get app? By the way, how's the audio? Because I've had some problems, and now a lot of time has passed, and I don't know if I've fixed them. Framework. Where's my framework? Where is my framework? Here we go. Get app. with app, get app. We can just await get app, right? So if I do this, then I'll just say await framework dot get app, and do this. Framework is spelled differently. All right, so no app here, app here. Okay. All right. I feel like I should put this into some sort of object, but whatever. All right, so we'll just do this like that. And then we'll do this. Something like that. Right. Then I don't think I need any of this stuff. I'll just call that. Do that. Correct replay init. Wait framework get app. Okay, and then we'll probably but just do this and nope. This. We should. It should always get included? Oh, no, because this... Okay, so this doesn't go through our surf puzzle code. Ugh, that's annoying. No, it does go through handle surf puzzle. But it doesn't go through... Wait, what the heck? What's going on? Let's see what's going on. Thanks. Glad the audio is working at least. Now, if the stream doesn't just abort in disconnect in about an hour, I'll be actually happy. So that's some problems I've had before. Modify Sudoku HTML. So are we not getting our replacement here? Why are we not getting our replacement? Because we don't have the puzzle data. Because we're bailing out if the puzzle isn't in the database. All right. I was gonna test it on this puzzle because the solution is super simple. And I'll probably should set it up as a test. Yeah, let's just set it up quickly. I did not relock my taskbar. So if we go into this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and we'll create a file called, we'll do that. And we'll save this under, under public staging, API, puzzle. Oh, Jesus Christ, Windows. It's just list the files. 9 by 9, and we'll just call it test. Right? And now if I go here, 9 by 9, 9 by 9 slash test. Yeah, it's not working because it's not pulling it from the database. Okay. I miss the file-based API. Do I want to push it in the database? Blue selected. Did you have to map out a full 256 title set for all possible permutations, like including corners? For the blue selector, full 256 tile set for all possible permutations. Oh, no, no, no. I actually built a nice little algorithm for that. And I think it lives in either utilities or script.js. Maybe it's in utilities? System, files, full screen, SVG tools. Get line points, get cells along points. Get line points now. Okay, it's probably in script.js. Boom. It's actually, is this on the render? Probably should be on the render, but it might not be. Points to path, render rect, render salvage, text cage labels, render error sum, rect, render part, render text, render salvage, render get cell outline. Here we go. So, and I don't know if I prematurely optimized it or de-optimized it, but it basically runs this algorithm, get cell outline, and it basically maps groups of cells against these patterns. And let me see if I remember. So basically each of those represents one of the 4 corners. So if we take something like this, if I do that, right, and if I do this, right, so this basically says if the cell above is not part of it, the cell on the left is not part of it, the current cell, the cell to the right, and the cell below is part of the selection, and I don't care about the corners, then do this thing, right? So that means we're an outside corner on the top left corner, right? So that means in the selection, it basically means this bit, right? So if I replicate this pattern, we're up here, right? And then we'll have like a similar thing for an inside corner. So that's the inside corner, top left, top right, bottom left, right, bottom left. And then we have, these are probably for edges. So if I look at that, yeah. So we're basically saying this is the 2, right? That we have an edge below, or this cell actually, but this is not part of it. We don't care about the cells underneath because we're only looking at this line. So it's the outer edge, external edge, right? And then Solo is basically just that. And then basically it says, okay, which points are part of it. And then the nice thing about this is it lets you inset or outset it. So it uses the same algorithms for killer cages and stuff. So the same algorithm, right? And it basically gives you a polygon. So for example, so we have offset, right? So if we're changing the offset, so for example, let's say OS equals 5, right? Then, okay, maybe, I think this is in cell units, right? So 0.5 would be half a cell. Okay, 0.1, 1/10 of a cell, right? As you can see, these are cages that are formed by the rows and columns. So by forcing an offset on those, obviously things look a bit weird. So that's 20% inset, right? So, and that's why I got individual lines when I did a 0.5 inset. And the nice thing is it goes in the opposite direction as well. So I can do an outset as well. So I can do, that kind of thing. And I use it for everything, cages, outlines, selection, and so on. But obviously, the offset needs to be matched. So, for example, these cages have an offset of 0, This has an inset half the excuse me, half the thickness of the line. And just to compare, it basically returns the polygon, right? So if I do this, right, then it returns. This is basically the SVG line data, right? So we're starting at the M, and then we'll have lines, straight lines to these. And these numbers are relative to cell sizes. So 0, 0 is here, 1, 1 is here, 2, 2 is here, and so on and so forth, right? So this actually then gets multiplied out by the actual cell size, which is 64 by 64. So if we look at where this is used, so for example, when you're rendering a cage, we'll take that, right? We'll take the edge points, but then we're multiplying them out by the cell size, right? And yeah, so that's cage rendering. I think for the selection, it happens... I don't remember where that happens, actually. Maybe the selection just says, uses, you know what we can do? We can do a warn here. It'll give us a stack trace, right? Render cage, render selection. Yeah, so it literally just says, the selection is just a cage with special styling. Oh yeah, no, there's no sprite. It's just part of the SVG, right? So if you look at the DOM, you see the SVG here, and there'll be a layer for the selection, which is cell highlights. Boom. So, for example, if I do this, if this cell highlights is empty, if this, I have one rectangle and one fill, so there's a separate fill, so I can, because there used to be styles where the, and actually I think it slightly dims what's on the inside. Excuse me. Interesting. I didn't realize that. It renders a separate element for each cell that has a highlight in it. Oh, wait, what? Okay, so that's the line. What are these? I didn't realize it was doing that. Zero, was that opacity 1? Fill, red. Stroke, blue, green. Stroke width 4. Opacity 0.5. Should this not be being rendered right now? Visibility hidden. Oh wow. So it's rendering something for one of the others. I think this was the old selection system, and I guess I never removed the code, so it still renders the old selection system. Because the original selection was this yellow color, and then the blue was basically a add-on plugin kind of feature that just sort of hid the old selection. But I've never actually removed the old selection code, which is terrible. So yeah, so it basically still does the original selection code. Then it hides it, and then it has like a little plugin that creates the blue outline. I think you can still change it, unless I've removed that. There used to be a setting for that. Yeah, look at that. So let me refresh to get rid of my changes. So that's the original selection, I think. And then I had a light and a dark version that was created these edges to help with background colors. And that created a dark edge. And then I had to leave it in because some people still want it, but now I don't know, if I removed it now, 3 people would complain, and then I'd feel bad, and then I would put it back. All right. Let me get back to what I was doing, and let me make sure I didn't leave some changes in here in the code. Nope. Okay. Excuse me. So. Because we're not matching the URL, yada. I was going to try this because it's kind of simple as well. So if I do this, and I'll put 3 here, 4 here, 3 here, 2 here, 1 here, 4 here, 2 here, and 1 here. Okay, so then we hit this. Now, if I do this, we hit it again. Okay, so in the old one, in the original version, by hijacking the solve counter, we could basically use that to find if a puzzle had already been solved and registered, and we only sent it if that wasn't the case. I don't want to put the code in here, but I'll probably still use the solve counter. Either I use the solve counter or I have a separate flag. Yeah, I mean, it's like the data that comes out is just XY coordinates, right? So feel free to swipe the algorithm if you want. I remember spending some time rebuilding it at one point to make it more efficient. Now, the fact that it's using those long strings and pattern matching probably makes it less efficient, but it's actually... it was mostly optimized for as few passes as possible, so to look at each cell the least number of times. Actually, let me have a quick peek at get cell outline, right? What data does it look for in the cells? For each pattern, sex, push, check patterns. So check patterns, row column, patterns. So it takes these patterns. For each row and column, it filters. So it takes the bits, it splits up the bits. Okay, so it takes that. Yeah, so it basically says this is _01. So obviously, instead of having this as a string, by having this as an array or like an actual bit pattern or something, you can probably optimize this, have less string bollocks going on. Because it's actually pulling the character out, right? And then check RC is... okay, it just checks. Yeah, so that basically handles clipping to the edges of the grid. And then basically it generates like... So it does what the complexity really comes from then connecting the points between the cells, right? So it says it calculates the corners and the offsets. So for example, like this selection creates a point here, a point here, point here, and a point here, and then point here, 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 and here. And then the segments is basically connecting this to this, right? And optimizing it a little bit. So I think there's a point here and a point here, but there's only one point here. Actually, I don't know if I'm doubling up on the points. Like, if I have a point here and here. Like, I don't know if this is one line segment that goes this way, or if it's from here to here, from here to here, from here to here. You know, it could be 3 line segments. I'm not sure. But, you know, that stuff is easily to optimize as well. Well, perfectly fine, because it doesn't actually care, right? It just applies it to every cell and it checks its neighbors. So, if we do this, just output the result. If I do that, and then I'll just do this and that, it basically just returns 2 squares, right? So it says, move to this position, draw 3 lines, close the shape, move to this position, draw 3 lines, right? Close the shape. So it's just drawing SVG drawing instructions, really. But it will actually come up as a single, fill, right? So as you can see, the numbers basically get converted to the string. So you'll have the move to this position, then draw a line, draw a line, draw a line. Close the shape, move, line, 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 close the shape, right? And the only difference between what you see here, these fractional numbers in here, is that these numbers are in cell units, right? So 0 to 1 is from one side of the cell to the other, while these are in 0 to 64 units, where each cell is 64 by 64, and we don't have fractional values, right? Well, we could. It's just that these are aligned to be basically 4 points in, because the line is 8 points wide, right? That's kind of part of the reason why I built the algorithm this way, because then I didn't have to concern myself about this at all, right? And you see, what it does is, let's see, cells for each cell. Let's work on grid. Yeah. Do build my own grid here, huh? So I'm basically building a sparse grid from the cells that get passed in. So it passes in a list of cells. Each cell has a row and a column number. Then it basically creates a sparse 2D array with those cells in, so it can match against the underscore patterns that say, I don't care what's in that cell. And then basically, it first creates the grid. Then for each cell, it matches the pattern. Match patterns, yeah. And then for each match pattern, so each pattern here generates a segment, right? So if it matches more than one pattern, it carries more than one segment. Where are the patterns here? Right, so these are all the possible segments, i.e. line bits that you can get, the out. So for example, like this, you'll have this segment and you have these segments, right? And then once we're done, follow shape basically just for each segment. Let's see, follow shape segments. Ah, yeah, so we basically say, okay, pass the segments into follow shape. It basically gets a segment, follows all the attached segments, pops them off the list of segments, and then it basically says, if you have disjoint, it'll basically create this. And when it's done with this, we'll hit here, we'll say, oh, we have more segments to go, and then we'll just do it again, and it'll create the next one, right? And this basically joins each set of connected segments into a shape. And then this one basically joins the points together. Yeah, and then it figures out, okay, where do we start? Where do we draw the lines? Yeah, and this basically runs for each of the individual subshapes that are created. Each disjoint collection. All right. I don't mind actually going through this because, yeah. And those dotted lines, there's some styling plugin or something is creating these, and I don't know which. It's bugging me. It's one of these. Like these dashed lines. And it's like if I open this in a different browser, they don't show up. But I don't know which, like if I go into incognito, it shouldn't happen because different extensions, right? But unfortunately, I don't know which extension does it. And it's really annoying because, like, why? Why is an extension creating a dotted green outline on some arbitrary buttons, right? And I remember once spending some time trying to chase it down. And, like, I don't even see it here. Maybe, like, it looks like it's on the button, right? But I don't know if an extension would even show up here. And I don't know what the green dashed line is represented by. Is it an outline? Is it a border? I don't see any green here. If I say outline 2px solid red, what do I get? Okay, so that's not interfering with the green dashies. Okay, so it's definitely not on this level. Outline 5px. Oh, that's rounded. So it can't be... Oh, wait, it's gone now. Wait, why is it gone now? Why is it gone now? Is it because that created a style tag? God damn it, now it's gone. Okay. I don't want to see that. Let me also make sure I get rid of that. Oops, I get rid of that. And I don't have it in here. Okay. So, yeah, solve the puzzle, but we want to figure out how to send the replay data. Right. So, we want to use the solve counter as a sort of first stop to say, hey, if you have updated the counter, you've already sent the replay. So we only send the replay once, as far as we can determine from client data, right? Solve counter get. So if I do framework.features.solved counter ID solved counter increment. Let's just grab that quickly. Solved counter increment happens. Show counter in dialog. Show counter. Get counter ID. Okay. All right. So let's do this. Choose. Framework. And then we'll get the counter ID. Right. That's the counter ID. Now that means we're really identifying replays by counter ID. Will the replays only be for a user to view their own, or will there be a database for you to look up? The replays are already, like, your system already has all your replays in there. So you can go under, if you go under settings, import, export, you can generate a GIF from your replay. You can, where is it? Replay safe lord. Right. So all your replays are already there. Just go to a puzzle and load the replay. And all the replay data is in your local storage, right? So if you go to local storage, basically anything with progress underscore is a SudokuPad replay. So these are all my replays, for example, right? What this is for is sending the replays to a server for analysis, right? So there's basically, they want to do research on certain puzzles, and they want to basically analyze, how people use puzzles, how they solve, This is primarily for kids, but obviously it could be used for other things in the future as well. And I'm basically just building the tool chain to facilitate that research. Now, I'm also obviously working on an account system where people can have accounts with, their puzzles stored on my servers. So I probably will need some of these mechanisms for that as well. But of course, there, people will be signed in. So I don't have to worry as much about abuse of the system and so on, right? And it won't just be replays, it'll be puzzles and other things, ratings and things like that I want to store as well. All right. So we have the counter ID. And we want to check if a counter has been locked. Counter ID is counter element, counter ID. Of counter get. Here. This self counter get. I see. Okay. Self counter get. So await solved counter dot self counter get counter ID. That counter equals blah blah blah. So that's counter ID. And then the counter information should be in here. So if I do that, Nope, not that. If I do that... Nope. Okay. Boom. All right, and then we have the count here. And how do we decide if get counter data load data this the load data counter ID equals to counter ID I actually want to see I want to see what it looks like when there's no counter available under that ID. ABC 1 2 3. Wait. It does return count 0. So if first count doesn't exist, huh? Because I'm really trying to figure out right now how I determine if we want to increment or not. So if get counter data has counter, set counter data counter true. Set counter data counter ID prop counter data counter ID track. Where do we increment the freaking counter? This is, you know, increment. It just sets it to false or true. Turn counter. If this dot get counter data dot counter data dot counter get counter data dot counter. If I do this, I'm a little confused exactly how this works. Counter. Get counter data. Counter true liked true. So, get counter data. Counter data down. Counter two. Get counter data set. Wait a second. Because self counter get, that's an API call. Yeah, we don't want to do that. No. We basically need to do that. Okay. All right, that makes sense. Yeah, now I understand. If I do this, counter true like true. Okay, so this we want, and then we just say if counter is true, we'll send the data. We don't send the thing over. Beep. How long have I been streaming? Let's see. Sorry, 1 sec. My brain is slow. Where do I see this? 1 hour, 40 minutes. Yeah. So I'm getting tired. Let's see. We have some of these steps, right? So we've kind of done that. More or less. We don't really have the configuration, but, you know, for prototype purposes. We kind of did that. We haven't done that, and we haven't done that. Okay, so we're basically on step 2. And we're almost at the point where we can actually send the stuff over, right? Because now if I look at the old prototype, replay test, we basically need to do that. We basically need to assemble the thing, right? So if not counter, post replay, right? And then we'll do something like that. Post replay. Bum bum bum. So, so if I do that, boom, counter is true. We don't post replay. Okay. But we actually do want to post replay at any time at the moment. We'll do that. Okay, and then we end up in post replay. And then we kind of need to take some of this stuff. So maybe we'll do something like that. Do we want to just grab the date? Probably not. We'll probably just want to create like the full date time object. Puzzle ID, sure. Proceed test config date. Okay, because that's a date check. Yeah, that we'll do on the server side. And then we'll get progress data. So we'll have app, puzzle, get progress. Boom. We'll do that. And that. And I'll just do this. So we'll do that. We'll get 633 bytes of progress data. We'll have the puzzle ID, which is actually our short ID. We'll worry about... I'll figure out exactly what other information I want to include. We'll probably want to do this. But without the... we want to include the time zone and all that. Like that. So we'll get that, we'll get that, we'll get that. Now, do I want to dump this into a JSON object? Probably. Do I want to multiple encode this? Probably not. So we'll probably do something like this. Payload equals JSON dot parse this, or just do that. I do that. Actually, when I'm saving the replay, what additional metadata do I include? And how do I include it? Nope. I need replay save. Start button, node file. Start payload, load payload. Handle window drop drag, blah 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 blah. Where is Set, create, replay, create payload. Here we go. Ah, okay. Okay, so kind of like what I have in mind, actually. In fact, is the replay here, is that just get progress? Puzzle ID, get replay. Framework.app.get replay. Framework.app.puzzle.get progress. Doubly encoded. So progress actually is more than replay. Okay, that's silly. That is just silly, but that's how we are. We're a bit silly here. All right. So we'll put the payload together. We'll do replay equals app JSON.parse app.getReplay. Now, app.getReplay, I presume, has some sort of arguments. Get replay. Play. And the options are ignored. Great. Okay, then I don't have to worry about it. So we're done with that. We're done with that. If I do this, okay, so we have the replay, and then we'll only encode it once. What I'm hoping to get is results from the research. So people might, for example, they might be able to say, for example, what I personally am interested in is comparing subjective difficulty rankings. So, for example, what does it mean if a James Sinclair gives a puzzle a 4 versus if Full Deck gives a puzzle a 4 versus an LMD rating? I would like to see correlations between video length of a Mark/Simon video and perceived difficulty and things like that. But hopefully it'll also give us something about the variance, like which puzzles have similar solve paths, similar behaviors for the solvers versus which puzzles are more erratic, you know, have some players get stuck, other players take different, very wildly different paths, that kind of thing, right? I mean, I've experimented in the past with like building heat maps, so you could really clearly see which clues were important to solve first, and the flow of the puzzle, you know, inside out puzzle, like where you start in the middle and then, or you start at a particular clue and then others follow, or elimination puzzles where you do all sorts of things and then you narrow down to one point that's left. Ciao guys, see you later. But the beauty of it is that that's not going to be my job. That's going to be some smart mathematicians, postgrads that are going to, or education postgrads that they're currently working on plans of how to analyze this data. And it's not going to get rolled out across the whole site. This is going to be for, you know, specific puzzles opted in and posted to specific channels of people who are notified that this is happening. What was I doing? Oh yeah, I was putting together the payload package, right? So, over here, we included a bunch of things, right? We include format, fetch, puzzle. Because here I'm including the puzzle, which I'm not going to do here. Okay. And I want to add some other things. Yeah. All right. So we're going to do this. We're going to do puzzle ID. Date. If I JSON stringify a date, what do I get? So JSON.stringify new date. I get that. And if I to isostring it like that, I get the exact same thing, huh? If I say date, I'll get this. And if I say date here, it's all, here's a string, here's a string. So it is exactly, no. No. Let's combine the two. We'll have A and B. So A is 0152. B is 0152. Wait, how do I get different values here? Here they're wildly different. Here they're basically the same, right? New date. Stringify new date is a new date. Which is strange because this is a string. So it... Okay, I'm... Weird. Wait, and they're both different than either one of these. Oh, I'm an idiot. This is seconds, so obviously it's the same, it's just at different times. Okay. All right, cool. So JSON's stringify on a date is to isostring. The question is that reliable? Date JSON stringify. How to stringify? Is that? So it doesn't work for integer time zones. Seriously. If a JState option want to string and preserve the time zone, you should definitely use to locale date string. It's a very powerful help function. I don't actually want to preserve the time zone. Or do I? Maybe I do. Because it'll tell us something about where in the world and what time of day they played it, rather than just when they actually played it. What if I do this? Got to locale string. But that doesn't actually to locale date string. Placer function. Always inclined to not mess with functions prototype system object like the date. No one is going to bite you in some unfair. Okay. Accepts a replacer function. Date placer. Placer. So if instead of date, UTC string. To UTC string, is that not gonna be more lossy? It does give me GMT, huh? Isostring with time zone? Because it converts the time zone, doesn't it? Okay, dates are difficult, so for now I'm just gonna let JSON do its thing. For now, this is fine. We'll get into more detail down the line for sure. So we get that. That doesn't seem to trigger. Syntax error, unexpected token, comma. No. Alright, so we have our payload. Now I want to hit the API. And I've been adding APIs recently willy-nilly, so hopefully it's not going to be too complicated. I've just added these, admin, replay submit, admin. Yeah, no, actually, that doesn't go there. Replay submit, replay submit. Okay. So I do this. I mean, we'll need to actually make a call to this. Down. Something along these lines. And we'll do this, API. Replay submit. And we'll basically just submit the payload. Boom. Did I copy that from somewhere here? Yeah. Should be good. Boom. So that hits this API call. Got that. We got the dialog. We should have API in the network tab here. And it should have sent the replay JSON as our message. You make games for work. What sort of games are you making? SudokuPad. You believe it or not, that's my full-time occupation. All right. And then I basically just have to figure out the logistics. Like, where do I want to put it? I've done some cleanup on the server earlier, so we should have some space. Yep, we've got 16 gigs. We'll probably want to save it under the API. Or we can save it straight under SudokuPad.app. Where are we? Where are we? Too many repos. Here we go. So we could go under API, and instead of thumbnails, we could save it under here. Puzzle, short ID, modify Sudoku schema. Yeah, we need to get rid of that. We can't have it be this spammy. Also, this doesn't need to be this spammy. So, do that. We'll do that. We'll do that, sure. To do this, check if replay needs sending. To do verify or update date metadata. Okay. And then under SudokuPad app repo, we'll go to, oops, here, clean that up. Clean that up. That's fine. For that. All right. Yeah, and that's what we need to do. We do store submitted data. Let us. How do I extract the post data? I think I've abstracted it so far away that I don't remember how to do it. No. Admin create link. Get request body. Here we go. So, scroll to the bottom, refresh the page, complete the puzzle. Here's our replay data as JSON. I don't know if we actually want to decode it like that. No, SudokuPad is my. It's more like the other way around. I want to. There's some. I miss animation. I miss 3D. So I'm kind of trying to figure out excuses of how to incorporate it into the whole Sudoku business, such as, you know, having a 3D world that you move through before you play puzzles and things like that. And I have a couple of other projects on the back of my head that I want to push in that direction. But yeah, no, SudokuPad is definitely not the side hustle for the last 4 years. All right. I think I'm gonna call it here because I'll be honest, my brain isn't functioning. It's past 8 in the evening and I'm super tired and I'm still a bit sick. And I feel like I'm really slowing down. I'm like operating at 1 minute per 10 minutes or something like that. But we've gotten pretty far. So we've done most of the core work. We're sending it. I mean, at this point, I could just literally just dump it into a folder and have the basic functionality done. But I want to run a test sometime this week. Well, I'll pick some puzzle and I'll just start something up. The other tricky bit I want to do is I want to be able to react fairly quickly. So I basically, for example, if I want to run a test and I need a lot of data for a test, I'll actually want to say, hey, whatever is the latest CTC puzzle, hit that. Except I won't know what the latest CTC puzzle is. So I need to be able to say, okay, when the video goes live, hit an API and it says, okay, now track this particular puzzle, you know, that kind of thing. And in fact, I'd love to do server-side automatic detection of that, sort of like, hey, if traffic goes up fast on a particular puzzle, mark that as the video puzzle of the day, right? So, for example, if we go to YouTube, cracking the cryptic, and I also need to set up a bot that just scans their channel, right? So 20 hours ago, if I look at currently the most popular puzzle, and I'll say last 7 days. So that actually got released Saturday at 11. So it's either this one or this 20 hours ago would be 8 o'clock. I don't know if this is in my local time. 20. It peaked at midnight. So it peaked 20 hours ago. So that was Mark's. Right. Because we always see 2 spikes, right? We will see 1 spike for Simon's puzzle and 1 spike for Mark's puzzle. Although, man, this is going down. What's going on here? What's going on? November. My traffic has been going down lately. I don't understand why. I don't know if there's something wrong with the site. Yeah, look at that. Just, it's been going great, and then suddenly, the last 3 months. I mean, I guess it technically started in July. And it's getting quite extreme. It's like 50% down last month over over May. So we started fully tracking in January. Summer wasn't fully yet. Yeah, this is not how it should go. I don't know what's going on. All right. I'll run the first test sometime this week on a puzzle just to see what happens, how it hammers the server and all that stuff, how much, because I don't even know like what the average size for replay is and things like that. So that would be nice to see. What's the variance, largest, smallest. Then I want to put in a lot of safeguards, maximum of files per collection session, maximum size per replay, minimum size, well, you know, discard bad data, how do I validate the data without going through a expensive parsing step, things like that, you know. I wish I could like calculate some sort of checksum, not like on the raw data, but like on the encoded data, to make sure somebody can't just package up garbage. But it doesn't really matter because they can literally just resend an existing replay. But then basically, yeah, I'll probably check my hashes and things like that. Anyway, I think that's it for today. Thanks for hanging out, Marussia Dark. I appreciate it. And, you know, feel free to post in my Discord under SudokuPad when you are... I'd love to know what you're working on when you're working on your game again or something like that. In the meantime, thanks for hanging out. Hopefully next week I'll be feeling fitter again and I can do a full proper 2 to 3 hour stream without feeling tired halfway through and kind of losing my train of thought like this. It's been a struggle. Thanks a lot. Take care. And thanks for hanging out, everybody. Catch you in the next one. Bye-bye. Ciao.